So earlier on this week, or last week I should say now at this stage, it was tweeted on Twitter, forget by who, but it was that Chris Eubank Jr. is looking to return in October or November time, but at this stage there's no opponents named, there's nothing finalised, and there's no concrete date of which he'll return. And seeing that at the time, I kind of just, put no pass on it. But then it's only when you start thinking, when's the last time Chris Eubank Jr. fought? February, when he fought James DeGale, of course. But thinking back to that fight, there was all this talk that, once he gets through DeGale, he'll have 3, maybe even 4 fights this year. And I know when he originally started that ITV, pay-per-view, whatever the hell it was, he had 3 fights the first year, albeit against, less than stellar opposition. But he did, and obviously last year he had the loss to George Groves, so he had to rebuild, and that win he got over JJ McDonough, it was a very quick kind of announcement. JJ McDonough, he's shit. Like, he's no use. But JJ McDonough, it was a fight. Whereas this year, he had the DeGale fight. We heard all this talk about, 3 fights this year, etc., etc. As it happens, we haven't heard anything. And as it happens, Al Heyman's kind of UK PBC, has he ran more shows since? Because Joe Joyce was on that card, and not long after that, he went and signed off with Frank Warren. Who else was on that card? Lee Selby was on it, and now he's fighting Ricky Burns on a Matchroom show. I know Lee Selby was originally promoted by Eddie Hearn, and for all intents and purposes, should never have left him. But it makes me wonder, what is Al Heyman's plan for the UK and for the fighters that he still has signed? Because by all accounts, I think Lee Selby is still signed with Al Heyman. Realistically, I'm struggling here to think of anyone else who's kind of got a relationship with Al Heyman from that point of view. I know DeGale did, but he's obviously retired. I really can't seem to think of anyone else. So if you're talking about Chris Eubank Jr. being the only kind of UK-based fighter that Al Heyman has, I'm starting to think that might be true, because I'm seriously struggling here. If there's any UK fighters that are based in the States, maybe, but I'm struggling, seriously. And having all said all that, who does Eubank Jr. really have to fight? Because we heard talk about John Ryder. I would definitely bet that John Ryder will probably be Billy Joe Saunders' next opponent. I just see that happening purely because both Matchroom fighters now. I know John Ryder has fought on ITV before, but he's been on such a great run of form lately, and he's getting good wins, very good wins. I just can't see anything other than Billy Joe versus John Ryder coming next. I seriously can't. I think he's even is John Ryder mandatory for Callum Smith? I think he might be as well. So I can't actually see anything other than John Ryder fighting on Matchroom show next. Again, where does that leave Eubank? Because, excuse me, we have... Who do we have in the super middleweight division? We have Caleb Plant. Caleb Plant's a good fighter. He's based in the US. I can't see him coming to the UK. And I don't think he'll probably fight for the rest of the year. We have Benavidez, who is fighting Durrell. And we all expect Benavidez to come through that. I would, if I was Team Eubank, I would be steering clear of Benavidez, personally. And who else do we really have then? Because we've Callum Smith and Billy Joe. They're both Matchroom fighters. Although I wouldn't mind seeing the Billy Joe rematch. It'd be easier to make now, I think, that Billy Joe was with Eddie Hearn than it would have been with Frank Warren. But realistically, when you look at the super middleweight and you look at the division, it's either Al Heyman PBC fighters or Eddie Hearn fighters. But I don't see Eubank Jr. really wanting to go in there with some of them Al Heyman fighters, just purely because they're so much bigger, and I think they're probably just technically a little bit too good for him. In the case of Caleb Plant. In the case of Benavidez, I think it's just too big. So who else does he have? He can go back down to middleweight, and that's even worse because all the fighters are his own fighters, the champions anyway. And, a Canelo, a Golovkin, would the public really in the US want to see Canelo versus Eubank? Because Eubank's not really known in the US. He's known in the UK, but I think most people do know him in the UK as being more of a loudmouth than anything else. Every time he stepped up, he's come short. So who does Eubank Jr. really have, and where does he really have to go? Because they're more or less saying that there's a date here for November, October, but there's nothing finalised, and there's obviously no opponent being named. And as I said, I really don't see it being John Ryder. Who really else is there, like when you look at that super middleweight division in retrospect, that he could fight? it's a struggle. Like, it's a tough ask because you're not really. If he does fight someone, they're probably not going to be that good. Do you know what sort of way? Like, so it's not like we're going to see Eubank Jr. taking on De Gale and then fighting someone in a world title eliminator who was top five. I can't see that. I can imagine next time we see Eubank Jr. in the ring, it's going to be someone less than stellar. And I wonder if Eubank Jr. is kind of starting to regret, burning these bridges with guys like Eddie Hearn, like Frank Warren, because there might have been opportunities there. There might still be opportunities. I'm sure Eddie Hearn would probably be willing to work with Eubank if it got him a nice payday. But, I mean, who else does Eubank Jr. really have to go with? Because we've seen, like, his kind of claim to fame this year has been beating James DeGale and then going on that show, Gogglebox. I don't know, whatever the hell. Like, I seen the show, a bit snippets of it, but I don't know what it's about. They're filming people watching TV or something like that. I don't know. I literally seen it for 2 seconds. So that's kind of really all he's been doing this year. So it begs the question, what's next for Eubank Jr.? I've always said it, that I don't, from a technical point of view, Eubank Jr. is sloppy. He really shows his flaws. He is entertaining in the ring when he's mixed with the right opponent. When you get someone who is going to come up, squared shoulders, try and pressure Eubank Jr., he looks good and he's fun to watch. When he's in there with someone who can box the head off him, then, he's found wanting a lot of the time. And even in the De Gale fight, you could see in that De Gale fight that if this was De Gale of a few years ago, Eubank Jr. would have been in trouble. Because you could see De Gale was a better boxer, but he was just shot to pieces. He was just gone. That was the worst De Gale I ever seen. So, yeah, it's an interesting one. Where does Eubank Jr. go, and what's he going to do next? Because, he can cling on to that claim of being the IBO champion for whatever it's worth. It's, as I said in the previous video, if you are interim champion with WBA or WBC, that's better than being an IBO champion. You actually have more sway at the negotiation tables if you're an interim champion as opposed to an IBO champion, believe it or not. So, that's my thoughts on this. Leave yours down, but let me know what you think he's going to do next. It's a strange one. Eubank Jr., that being said, he's made an awful lot of money, despite the fact he's never won a world title or really beaten anybody world level. Because De Gale was once world level, but he wasn't then. So that's kind of my thoughts on this. Let me know what you think down below. Leave your thoughts down below. Let me know what you think. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave a like. Subscribe if you're new. And as always, I will talk to you after.